Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. Got another great episode for you today. This one is special for me because it's another Charleston startup founder. And like I've told people before in the podcast, I may or may not be moving to Charleston sometime soon. It's just, really nice city. I keep hearing great things about, and I've had on 3 or 4 guests from Charleston, and everyone has nothing but nice things to say. So today's guest is Michael Stevens. He is the founder of a company called Booster. Their website is boosterapp.tv. And what they're doing is helping companies sell products through live stream. So it's like, Periscope meets PayPal, as Michael explained it in our pre-call. So, for a lot of people selling products on Etsy now, this is a way to do live streaming to your customers and be able to transact business right there on the spot. Companies raised $450,000, 8 people strong, and like I said, they are based in Charleston. Before starting this company, and this is Michael's first startup, he spent 7 years in politics, and he is very happy to be away from the political scene, and I don't blame him for that. Let's welcome him to the show. Michael, how are you, man?
Good, Jonah. How are you?
I'm doing good. Sun is out and spring is almost here, but you guys probably got spring a couple months ago down there, right?
Oh, yeah. It's sunny in Charleston almost all year round, so I definitely can't complain about the weather.
That's one reason I might want to move down there is because
I do not
love
blame
the sun. Funny, I went to a doctor's appointment, got my blood tested a couple weeks ago, and came back with a vitamin D deficiency. And she's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's very typical for people that live in the Northeast coming out of a horrible winter." I'm like, "Oh, great."
Right.
So no
Yeah,
sunshine.
yeah.
So
I
talk to
can
us about,
I can definitely relate.
yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, you were from Michigan, so you probably dealt with some pretty
Right.
tough winters too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So talk to us about Booster. I gave the little intro, but tell us more about the company, what you guys are doing.
Yeah. So Booster is a mobile application that's currently available in the Apple App Store. We're going to be rolling out an Android version here pretty quickly, but it combines live video with transactions. So this allows sellers to get on the mobile app, broadcast, demonstrate their products, tell the story behind their products, tell the story behind themselves if they want to, and get to know their customers in a pretty intimate fashion. Right now, we see, where e-commerce is, and of course, e-commerce is doing very, very well for itself. But we think that there's an opportunity in the market for people who want to stand out and get to know their customers a little better and demonstrate their products and conduct those transactions in a live format. The whole concept behind it was looking at the current state of e-commerce and saying, really, there's really no relationship quality currently there in the ecosystem. I mean, if you look at the world before e-commerce, you had people who had relationships with those that they were buying products from. Whereas when e-commerce came along, it became all about reducing friction, right? And making sure that people just get on the website, make their purchase, and get off of it as quickly as possible. But we think with live video, you can actually augment relationships and frictionless environments at the same exact time and not have to sacrifice these relationships at the altar of reducing friction. So that's kind of the premise behind what we're doing. And we're about 5 weeks old, so we're pretty new to the ecosystem, but we've had a pretty good response from those that we've reached out to so far, and looking forward to where this is going to take us.
Cool. So you launched the company in 2015, right? Or started working on this?
Yep, 2015. Yeah, we formed it in May of 2015, and I quit my job as a former political consultant in November of 2014. So yeah, we've been at this for a couple of years now.
So how did you go from politics into the startup life and then kind of fall into this idea?
Yeah. So it's not a traditional path, that's for sure. I haven't met anyone else who's a former political consultant, because on the politics side, usually you work your way up and try to get into the White House or work on Capitol Hill. With me, I was always on the digital side of political consulting. I actually started off working at a digital consulting firm, building WordPress websites and managing social media accounts for various members of Congress and the South Carolina State House, actually. And as a result, I got my hands dirty in a lot of online fundraising and got to know exactly how that works and how it doesn't work very well. And for the most part, in the very beginning, online fundraising was pretty lucrative when you use any kind of email spamming technique. Anyone who's ever donated to a political campaign before knows that what happens is you get bombarded with emails until you die at that point, because your email is put into a data warehouse, and that's sold and passed among various campaigns for years and years afterwards. And near the end of 2014, during my last congressional campaign, I really saw a huge dip in the amount of money that was being generated across, and this is, Republican, Democrat, independents, or whomever, using email spamming. It was just something where the unsubscribe rate actually exceeded the new amount of emails going into the system. So this made it nearly impossible to rely on this as a realistic revenue stream for any kind of political, or even charities rely on this quite a bit. And I just saw where things were and where things needed to go, and just thought, it'd be really neat if people were actually able to interact with those who were trying to sell them something, or just solicit people for donations or whatever. So that's what kind of got me thinking in terms of using live video as a means, as a catalyst to draw those transactions out and to make it more authentic. Because in a political campaign, whenever an email goes out, to donors, the member of Congress or the governor, whomever, never reads those emails. They have no clue what's being, said in their name, right? So it's not authentic at all, and it's pretty annoying. No one really likes it. So I was like, okay, well, if we can use live video and incorporate that in with transactions, we can make this a whole heck of a lot more authentic and personable and real. And I honestly think, that's where things are going to go. So why not go ahead and jump into it? So that's what kind of got my wheels turning about it. And once I started thinking about it, it just kind of stuck with me. I couldn't really, ignore it. And I'm someone who, I've never taken a business class in college. This is never something that I anticipated I would ever do. But I just couldn't get it out of my head. So I was like, what, I'm just going to dive into it. Let's just see where this takes us. And I guess the rest is history.
So right now you are currently on iOS. So there's a dedicated mobile app, and then there's also the web app. So people can essentially use their computers or laptops to watch these live presentations or streaming events. You're not on Android yet, but that's coming soon, correct?
Yep, that's correct. And as you mentioned, we do have the web app version there. And that's there to just serve as a way to introduce people to the content, because we don't want to make people download the app in order to actually view any of the broadcasts. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to get into the system. So say someone is broadcasting or schedules a broadcast, which they can do on the app as well, and they share the link on Facebook or Twitter. People who are their followers can tap on that link, and it'll take them to the web app version of the broadcast, where they can actually watch it without downloading the mobile app. And of course, if they want to submit a comment or stars, we have stars instead of hearts that the Periscope has. But if they want to make a transaction, then they would download the mobile app. But yeah, we have the web app there to serve that purpose. And as you mentioned, we want to go Android pretty quickly, of course. And the whole reason behind, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners know this, the whole reason behind going into Apple first and then Android is that Apple's review process is pretty intense. It can take a while for them to get back with you. They have all kinds of stipulations and edits that they like to make to it, and it's pretty grueling. But once you do get through Apple, then you're pretty much set, because Android is just so much easier to launch into. So once you have your Apple product that's refined and approved, you pretty much know you have something that's going to be approved by Android. So, but we definitely are looking forward to getting into Android as soon as possible, because of course it's a huge size of the domestic market, but also it's easily most of the international market, which of course we want to break into as well.
What types of people are using this platform right now to sell product? I mean, we've both mentioned Etsy type of people. In the pre-call, I mentioned that I've done interviews with some Shark Tank companies, one of which is Wicked Good Cupcakes. If they were coming out with a new product, a new, cake in a jar, as they call it, or cupcakes in a jar, they do brownies in a jar, all that cool stuff. That would be perfect, probably. What other types of companies are using this platform, or should try to, or should begin using it?
Sure. So the type of sellers that we're going after, we have a list of different criteria that we look for when we're scouting for a user. Number one is that we look for sellers who actually have their own inventory to go through. So Etsy sellers, of course, are immediately come to mind anytime we think of the types of sellers who'd be perfect on our platform, because they have a lot of inventory, but it's also very creative and unique inventory. It's inventory that you can tell a story about and really describe the process and and what goes into making those products. Secondly, we like to go after sellers who have products that are shippable, that can be actually mailed.
Right.
For instance, if you're selling a car, that probably wouldn't be the best item to sell on Booster, but something that can be put in the mail and distributed pretty easily.
Hey, don't say that, man. Maybe you'll get Tesla to sell their next model on Booster.
we would gladly take Elon's business all day. But yeah, and also too, we look for any kind of sellers that have nice maybe images of their inventory that they can upload. But you don't have to have the nice images. You can just take a picture of something and upload it if you want to. So, but we think it's pretty broad right now. I think as we go along, we're going to more narrowly define our niche. But right now, it's pretty wide open because there's really no one else that has this unique hard slant towards e-commerce in the live video space. So we're in a fortunate position to really kind of take our time, make sure that we move forward in a deliberate fashion and pinpoint sellers that are the best fit for the platform.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of Jool and host of the Startup Sense podcast. At Jool, we help entrepreneurs and startup founders build, launch, and grow their companies by providing superior technology, marketing, and consulting services. We help clients of all sizes, budgets, and industries. We put our clients in the best position to raise capital, grow revenues, hire employees, and maximize their profits. For more information or to set up a free consultation with our team, please visit our website at jool.net. That's JOOL.net. I could see even companies, once they finish doing like their Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign, they raise the capital, they do the manufacturing, the product's ready to go to market, and then they use Booster to kind of do like the live launch, of the product. Yeah. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that, actually, because this is something we've been talking about and trying to reach out to actually the Indiegogo as we speak and facilitate that conversation, because we do think there's a place in crowdfunding for this. If you look at crowdfunding campaigns, most of the funds come within the first 3 days and the last 3 days of any kind of crowdfunding campaign. And we think Booster could be there to kind of help level out that dip in the middle and help supplement those campaigns, give these campaign owners another tool to augment their PR efforts to get more attention and also answer questions about whatever it is that they're trying to sell or start up. So yeah, we think crowdfunding is an interesting space, so we would definitely like to delve into that area as well.
So let's expand on that. How do you find those people? How are you connecting with the sellers?
Yeah, so we brought on a team of 7 producers, 5 producers and 2 associate producers, and each person is in a department, right? So we have a department that's specifically going after Etsy people, for instance. We have a department that's going after bands and musicians here locally, which honestly, bands and musicians have really taken to it quite well. We notice that they get on and they'll live stream a practice session or a performance and sell vinyl albums or T-shirts or what have you. So each person on our team, including myself, we are tasked with going out there, finding people at the local level, getting their feedback about the application, and then once we find a specific strain within that department that really takes to us quite well, we're going to scale that, of course, across the country and hopefully internationally. For instance, tomorrow we're actually having at our office, we're having an Etsy meetup. We're inviting all the different Etsy sellers in the Myrtle Beach, Charleston, Columbia area to come into our office and meet up and talk about their Etsy shops, but also, of course, talk about Booster and how we can help augment their sales and what we can do for their individual shops. So it's really a pretty hands-on effort right now. We like to talk to these early users on an individual basis and get to know them, get to know their needs. We're very much in the handcrafting stage right now to make sure that we're not just building something that we think should exist on the market. We want to actually iterate around what the market demands for. So to answer your question, yeah, it's very hands-on. We're speaking with people directly in the local and in the regional level and getting their feedback.
I could see even nonprofits, not every nonprofit, but a nonprofit where there's like a particular mission that people can really get connected to. Like I interviewed Scott Harrison, the founder of Charity Water. That would be a good one if they did like a live stream from one of their, water wells or, while they were drilling or whatever, and people could actually like see the work happening and then they can kind of donate. or even like I've been on the boards of certain nonprofits for animal organizations or child abuse and stuff like that. I mean, my mind's obviously starting to wander. I'm sure you guys
Mm.
think about those things too. Is nonprofit a particular sector that could work?
It could. I think with nonprofits, they tend to, and like you said aptly, is that most of them tend to be a little bit old school, but you do have those very forward-thinking nonprofits that stand out. Like Charity Water is a perfect example. Charity Water does all kinds of amazing things. I think they even had a virtual reality fundraiser once. It was actually pretty neat. But we think forward-thinking nonprofits like that are definitely a space that we can operate in. And one thing that's great about the app is that it's really versatile. You don't have to upload images of physical items unless you want to. You can upload a picture of something and just say, hey, silver level donation or bronze level donation or whatever. Or you can, sell physical items too, of course, if you want to. But we think nonprofits are an interesting space. It tends to be higher touch. It tends to be a lot of relationship driven. But we do think that is a spot for us eventually. I don't think it's going to be something we break into right away, but it could easily be a space that we explore later on. And one nonprofit in particular is a local animal shelter that's here in Charleston. They have
Yeah,
a lot of followers on Facebook. They have I think 250,000 followers. But nonprofits like that are animal related, that just makes for very interesting content when it comes to live video, right? To show actually maybe an animal who's wounded or is in need of surgery and say, okay, this is a need that's actually happening right now. We need people to donate to help this particular, cat or dog to get better. So I think the urgency that's behind that can really be a space that we fill. So yeah, no, I think it's an interesting space to explore for sure.
So you guys are providing the platform, that's one piece of the puzzle. Then the other puzzle, of course, is the sellers, or the companies using your
Mhm.
platform, bringing the audience in. So what types of businesses are having the most success doing that, and how are they just leveraging their email lists and their social media followings? I would assume so, but maybe what parts of that are I guess what's working for them?
Yeah, so it's definitely a social media following is the one that's paying off the most. So if you have you don't have to have a huge following on Facebook or Twitter, but a couple hundred definitely helps, right? So if you're able to share your broadcast on Twitter or Facebook, and those people are already following you, then they'll see that post, and especially if you schedule a broadcast in advance, they'll be notified to join you when your broadcast starts if you follow them on Booster. So right now, so far, what we're seeing are the best conversion rates coming from people who have somewhat of a social media following already. As far as the whole email list approach, I really don't think that's something that we've seen a lot of success with so far. I think email, and this kind of goes back to our earlier topic about email spamming, is that's more of a passive way to raise money. That's like, okay, well, I'll send this to person X, Y, or Z, and they'll land in their inbox, and eventually, hopefully, they'll open it and send in a donation or whatever. So right now, we're seeing the best conversion happening from Twitter and Facebook specifically. We have a Facebook login through the app right now, so of course that translates very well. But yeah, that seems to be the best marketing mechanism in order to actually produce the viewership.
And how far in advance are these companies typically setting up the broadcast? And then, like, would I sign up for the broadcast and then get an email notification, like a day before and then an hour before?
Yeah, so honestly, most of them do not schedule it very far in advance at all. Some of them just do it within a few hours.
Okay.
There's one in particular. I'm actually on the app right now looking. There's a musician who he actually scheduled his broadcast days in advance, which is not normal. He's actually releasing an EP sometime this week. So most of it's just a few hours in advance. And when you do follow someone on Booster, you definitely get a notification that person is live. So you're reminded to join their broadcast and to hop in. And from there, we're also seeing viewers share the broadcast too, right? So if you're a viewer and you're watching a broadcast, you can share it via SMS, Facebook, or Twitter. And that's something I actually haven't mentioned, is that the amount of text message sharing that we've seen is actually much higher than we thought it'd be. People really like sharing their broadcast with individual people out of their phone book and inviting them via text message. So that's another mechanism they can use to draw viewers.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, just for argument's sake, say I'm a I'm a mom, and I'm watching a live broadcast on some product for my baby, and I know 5 other baby moms that would probably love a product like that too. I can send them the link so they can watch the live video, right? I mean, that's kind of the thinking behind it.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah. If it's more of like a personal broadcast where, maybe you don't want to share it with everyone on Facebook or everyone on Twitter, you can invite certain key people out of your phone book and make sure that they're able to tune in. So yeah, we're actually seeing, like I said, more of that than we actually thought we would. So text is something that's proven to be pretty valuable for us.
So I'm assuming since you spent 7 years in politics, you're not a very technical person. You're not an engineer by trade. So when you decided to kind of go down this path, how did you handle the technical side of things? I assume you hired a team or did you outsource to a company?
Yeah, so yeah, during politics, I was a website developer, but I was
Oh,
definitely
okay.
not a yeah, definitely not an app developer though. Which of course, I mean, I might as well not be anything, right? Because it's apples and oranges. It's so vastly different when you compare app development to website development. But yeah, jumping into this, we had to take things pretty slowly. So at the very beginning, actually, what we did was we just wanted some sort of a beta test just to kind of prove the hypothesis behind what we're doing. So we actually took Google Hangouts and stitched it together with Stripe just to kind of make it work to see how people reacted. And we actually teamed up with a developer friend of mine who just kind of built that for us and helped us out a little bit. And as a result of that beta, we were like, okay, well, we definitely have something here because we noticed two unique things happening during broadcast whenever a transaction took place. From the broadcaster side, whenever a transaction was performed, they saw the cash register ring, so to speak. They actually saw the money come in and a special animation occur when that happened. And it had this very Pavlovian response to it because they just were very encouraged by the fact that people were actually spending money on them.
Right.
So they got really excited and they wanted to keep broadcasting. And from the viewer side, anytime that they submitted a transaction, they got special notification or special recognition for that transaction, and they would screenshot it and share it with people. So we noticed that there was incentive on both sides of that equation. So like, okay, well, let's move forward with mobile development. And that's when we actually, we reached out to a local firm. They're actually based out of Columbia, South Carolina, and they've been great. They've walked us through the whole process of building the mobile app and why we should go Apple first and not Android, and they've been really good to us. So, but at some point, of course, this will be something that we have to bring in-house, right? So that's more of like a Series A sort of discussion that we hope to have very soon.
Right, right. No, I mean, I'm glad I asked the question because I think that is a big challenge for a lot of non-technical founders in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Do I hire full-time people to build this or do I outsource
Mm-hmm.
it for now? See if we gain any traction, see if we raise any capital, and then at that point I can bring it in-house.
Oh yeah. No, it's a very good subject to discuss because this is something that we bounced back and forth quite a bit in the early days. We didn't know if we should just hire someone because right after you get funding, you have the money, right? And you're like, okay, well, should we bring on a team? Should we test this on a smaller level? What's the most pragmatic way to spend this? And I'm definitely happy with the choice of going with a firm first. That's really good. We were very careful and choosy with the firm that we went with. I think we interviewed, oh gosh, probably over 24 firms. We spent like
Wow.
3 months talking to people. It was a very long process because we wanted to make sure we knew we had to get it right. Right? It couldn't be a firm that just kind of was like, oh yeah, we're going to outsource all this work for you to somewhere overseas and have God knows who work on this. So we wanted to make sure they were actually there physically, in the office, and we got to know them really well. So it was a long courtship that took place before we actually settled on them. And happy we went that route because I think as a result, we ended up saving a lot of money, and we're able to. Kind of my philosophy is to do something until it hurts, right? So anytime that we're using like a CMS or any kind of or like a sales tool, we try to use like spreadsheets first until it hurts. Then we'll switch over to like a platform that we have to pay for.
Have to pay for it, right.
Yeah, and I think that applies to development. I think when you go with a firm, that's not perfect. That's not the ideal. The ideal thing would be to have your own in-house development staff. But if you have limited funds, then you just got to make it work. So do that until it hurts, and then if it becomes something where it actually turns out to be, where your product is actually successful, then you can have the money to bring on in-house people and augment that effort.
Right. Sometimes you got to be really frugal in the beginning, unless it's jeopardizing, sales or efficiency or any of that stuff. Then sometimes it's just
Oh yeah,
worth spending for if it's going to save you time and money and aggravation. Um,
right.
what's been the biggest challenge so far for you guys?
All of it. The thing is, like at no point was this process easy. I mean, there was we've had to fight for every inch of ground because just launching a startup in Charleston, South Carolina, it's not exactly the tech capital of the world, right? So in order to find like investors, for instance, that we needed to bring on board and actually get this thing funded was very hard because a lot of the Southeast investor pool is more, acclimated towards maybe biotech or there's a lot of manufacturing money here, but a consumer-facing app that uses live video with transactions, that's not exactly something that the Southeast is used to. In fact, I think we're the only live video company on the Eastern Seaboard. I may be wrong about that, but I think all of them are based out of Silicon Valley or China or Hong Kong. So it's every step of the way has been difficult. I remember in the very early days, when I first started this, I poured all my money into it, completely flat broke, and we needed some designs done for our branding and for some of our slide decks. So in order to get the money that we need, I think we needed $600, and in order to get the $600, I actually went to a CSL plasma center and sold blood twice a week for 12 weeks because they would give you $25 every time that you sold blood or whatever. So that's how I funded my first slide deck. So, but yeah, to answer your question, every single step of this has been difficult, but it's been rewarding because to see where we are now in comparison to where we were 2 years ago is just it's awesome. So that keeps you fueled and making sure that you're moving forward.
So, given that you guys are in a more conservative kind of entrepreneurial area in Charleston, I dealt with this in Wilmington as well, Wilmington, North Carolina. Not a lot of investors around, and the ones that are around are just very conservative. They're not very active.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys raise your capital? I know you've raised a total of 450. Was that all at once, or was that in different tranches?
Yeah, so it's two different tranches. So the first one was raised by reaching out to a local local angel investor group here in South Carolina. And so it's an angel investor network. I think they have, I'm not sure about how many locations or how many groups they have, but it's at least a dozen, I would say. So I spent a good, I would say 4 months doing nothing but just pitching constantly. I would just go around from investor group to investor group, pitch, giving a pitch, answering questions. And every time I would do that, I would get a little bit better at it. I would tweak the slide deck substantially. And so by the time I was done, my end slide deck was nothing like the first one. In fact, my first one, I think I would be embarrassed to even look at now. But we went around to investor groups in Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and eventually got funding from that group. We got 250 from that group. And then later on, about a year later, we got another 200,000 from a program called SC Launch here in South Carolina. It's like a public-private fund. And we had to go through a pretty grueling pitch process with them. With them, it was like I think it was like a 5 or 6 stage process where every time they would vote you up or down, and if they voted you up, you would go on to the next step. And then once we got to the very end, we went through a due diligence process and eventually landed the funding. So it's been for us, it's been kind of a mixed bag. I mean, we've had to just do whatever it took. And I pitched to individual angel investors, investor groups, and all kinds of funds, and yet all over the Southeast. So when you're in the fundraising mode, that's got to be your 100% focus. You have time for like nothing else. So, but that's been our route so far into that.
What advice can you share with any founders listening to this that may not live in Silicon Valley or New York or Boston, or one of these big venture cities? They're kind of in a smaller area. Anything that you learned in your weeks and months of pitching?
Oh yeah. So I mean, first of all, you have to just be extremely assertive. My first step into that was just picking up the phone and cold calling one of the management directors at the angel investment firm based out of Greenville, South Carolina. And, he's never heard of me before. I had a very very like I said, embarrassing slide deck I had put together at the time. But he was gracious enough to go and meet with me for coffee. Told him my story. Told him what I wanted to build in a very energetic, passionate way, just because this is something I'm extremely passionate about. And from there, that just kind of got the ball rolling. But throughout the process, you just have to put your mind in the frame where you're just ready to absorb as many no's as you can possibly expect. Because at the very beginning of this, I knew that I was in the Southeast. I wasn't in New York or Silicon Valley, and I didn't have a sense for all the challenges I would face. So I just kind of put myself in the mindset of prepare for receiving 1,000 no's, and don't let that deter you. Just keep moving forward. So I was already in a mental state. So when I did hear a no, like an angel investment, or an angel group, it didn't really shock me. It didn't really sting that bad because I was expecting it, right? So any kind of advice I would give is just to have persistence, keep swinging, be extremely assertive. Me personally, I'm very much an introvert. I am not extroverted at all. I'm not someone who's got the gift of networking or really talented at conversation, honestly. But if it's something that you're passionate about, that'll help drive you. So just keep that flame going, keep talking to people, keep shaking hands and meeting with people, and eventually you will land in front of someone who shares your vision, and attach yourself to that person and keep moving forward.
Awesome. What are your goals for the next year or two with the company? I mean, other than launching the Android app and obviously finding more people to sell on the platform.
Yeah. So we have a pretty specific path in front of us. I'm not going to give away our entire game plan today, because I think I think right now we're the first to do this, but I don't think it's going to stay that way. I think there's going to be other competitors that do pop up. But within the next year, we want to join an accelerator program. We're looking at different ones, on the West Coast and East Coast to see which one's the best fit for us. But we'd like to join one of those. We'd like to go into a Series A. And one thing we talked about earlier is bringing on your own development shop. I definitely want to hire my own development talent and make sure that we have engineers on staff who are able to handle any kind of user needs very quickly and very aggressively. So I think, the top of the list is definitely bringing on developers. And I would say joining an accelerator to help us, network and keep that ball rolling on future investment funding. But ideally, we'll be in a position where we're not having to be reliant on other people's funds, and we'll be profitable in the near future. So I think, but like I said, I think the top concern is just building out our own team internally to make sure we have enough people on staff who are talented enough to iterate the product around our own needs and not have to rely on outside consultants.
Which accelerators are you the most interested in, and have you started applying to any yet?
Haven't applied any yet. I mean, we're looking at all the popular ones like Y Combinator, 500 Startups, and Techstars. We're really looking for the ones who have the mentorship there and the networks to connect us with larger e-commerce platforms, and also, of course, with investors who are more in the media pool. Surprisingly, a lot of investors don't really delve into that area. It's mostly like maybe in fintech or other areas of the business. But we want to make sure we join an accelerator program that it's tailored, more of a fit for live video. And there's definitely plenty out there to choose from, but we want to be very picky with the timing and very picky with which one we end up going with.
And did you say that are you still using Stripe as your payment processor?
We are. Yeah, Stripe is the back-end payment processor. Very happy with them. I've actually used Stripe quite a bit, even before we did this on political campaigns. So I definitely have an affinity for Stripe, and I love the way that they built that platform. I think it's extraordinarily user-friendly. The API is great to work with, and they have an awesome fraud detection program in place to help protect startups like ours. So yeah, very happy with our choice of Stripe.
Stripe was actually a Y Combinator company too, one of their more successful ones, of course.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Why did you not bring on a co-founder?
Well, I mean, the thing is, so this is one of those it kind of goes back to the earlier discussion about how unique what we're doing is, and being in the Southeast, it's hard to find people who really, share this type of vision in this part of the country. Had I moved out to maybe New York or, Silicon Valley, I'm sure it would have been a lot easier. But from the very beginning, I was very adamant about surrounding myself with people who understood what I was doing, and to make sure that they were able to mentor me through the process, whether it be through organizing a board, which I think our board is amazing, and bringing on producers who also share the vision as well. So it really wasn't a decision to be a solo founder. It just kind of worked itself out that way. It's definitely something that is trying, because you feel it can be lonely at the top. You feel like you're kind of all the weight's on your shoulders, but honestly, that does kind of harken back to my campaign manager days, because as a campaign manager, like running a congressional campaign, it's all on you. You got to be the buffer and the cartilage between all the outside forces that are looking to take you down and the inside of the team, right? You got to make sure you're protecting them and providing a safe environment. So I think, had I not had that campaign management experience beforehand, I think it would be almost impossible for me to get through this as a solo founder. But I think I've been trained appropriately through politics to head this up as a solo person. And but of course, moving forward, I'd love to bring on a CTO, COO, and make sure I have an executive team in place who's able to, who I can delegate to, and make sure they're able to handle all the other inner workings of the business.
Cool. And I mean, for anyone that's not familiar with Charleston as a startup scene, what can you tell us?
Well, it's growing. I mean, the thing is about Charleston, I wasn't here, 4 years ago, but apparently just in a very short amount of time, it's really augmented quite a bit. There's an accelerator here in town now. You have people who are investors relocating and retiring to Charleston. I mean, Charleston's an amazing, beautiful place. It's an older town, of course. I mean, a lot of the buildings here go back to the 16 or 1700s, but it's got a lot of really interesting technical, it has a lot of tech talent relocating to the area just because of how nice it is. I think we're definitely benefited by our beaches and by the weather. The weather here is it's perfect between, I'd say, February and November. I mean, you can't beat that. So it's definitely a growing community, and it's exciting to see where it's going to go. I know they're building another incubator space, so it's cool to be part of a community that is kind of in the nascent stages of finding its identity on the technical side. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
So there is some tech talent. I mean, and I've heard there is, but
There
I mean,
is.
Charleston is, you don't have like engineering schools necessarily in Charleston, or at least not that I know of, even in South Carolina. So
Mhm.
where's the talent all coming from, or at least where are startups finding their talent?
There's a lot of people relocating from New York and New Jersey. We have, I think New Jersey is, the top feeder state outside of South Carolina. So there's a lot of, Manhattan people relocating here. And I think it's because, number one, the cost of living is far
Yeah.
cheaper than those bigger cities. But number two is I think people in the tech community recognize the opportunity to be part of a growing group of tech talent where they can actually make a huge impact on. So if someone's working, in a mid-tier or low-tier part of a company in New York, they can work at a top-tier level here in Charleston. I think that they recognize that, along with the cheaper cost of living, is there's a lot of benefit there.
So I've done the cost of living comparisons. I was in Boston for 6 years, and then Wilmington, and now I'm trying to figure out if I want to go to Charleston. Charleston seems to be a little bit more expensive than Wilmington, but it's still less expensive than the big cities. What would it take for a young entrepreneur, or someone in their mid 20s, to get an apartment down there, and like how much would they need a month of living expenses? As I'm trying to recruit more people to the area, and I think there is something to be said, rather than going to Silicon Valley and spending $3,000 or $4,000 on an apartment, or even New York or Boston. What does it cost in Charleston?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, if you're in your young 20s, so you're like 22, 23, 24, you can find a room within a house, because in Charleston there's all kinds of there's houses everywhere, and you can rent out a room and maybe share a bathroom with someone for $800, $900 a month. I mean, it's not much at all, as long as you're willing to have roommates. your
Right,
budget
right.
can actually be extraordinarily lean. Now, I'm 34 myself, so I can't get into a house and share it with a bunch of college
Right.
kids. So I have to have
I'm
my own
closer to you,
studio.
so I wouldn't be sharing either. And part of the reason I ask is for my own information purposes. So, you know,
Yeah, yeah. It's well with me. Like, so I rent a studio apartment downtown. I mean, I pay about 1,100 a month, and so
oh
in
wow.
comparison, yeah, in comparison, still it's a lot cheaper than like Silicon Valley. I can't believe they pay three or $4,000 for a one room or a studio apartment. That is insane to me. But
Oh, it's
um,
insane. I mean, I was up in
yeah.
Boston last weekend for the Celtics game, and my buddy was asking, he thought about moving to Boston. He's like, what would it cost to get a studio in the back bay of Boston? And I'm like, probably $2,500. Like, it's crazy. And then forget that doesn't include parking and anything else. So, okay, so
Right, right.
a studio in downtown Charleston is, like between 1,100 and 1,500 probably.
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah, if you spend 1,500 on a studio, it's going to be a really nice studio. So yeah, for sure.
Good to know.
Yeah.
What else can you tell us about creating a startup in the live streaming space? What was the most complicated engineering aspect of that?
I would definitely say the tie-in with transactions. Obviously, I mean, with live video, I mean, if we tried to build this even 2 years ago, we would have probably had to build the entire thing from scratch. And luckily, other live video servers have popped up, like WebRTC, that provide that server space. So I think taking that and tying it into transactions to see exactly what that looks like, it was difficult on the engineering side, but it was also difficult on the UI side. So, being the former political person that I am, I assembled a large focus group pretty early in the process. We took all of our wireframes and mock-ups. I organized a series of focus groups and had them, sort of tap through the different designs to see how it worked. There's a great app called Envision, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners are aware of, but it allows you to actually really get a sense for where people want to tap on the screen. And during a broadcast, this has, never been done before. So we had to see exactly what the behavior was behind performing a transaction during a live broadcast as they were watching. I mean, is it best to have a button? Is it best to have a swiping gesture? So on and so forth. So we went through a pretty lengthy focus group process that lasted a couple of months to make sure we really honed that down. But I remember that particularly being one of those periods where we just really had to kind of stop everything we were doing, focus on that. Let's make sure we get this aspect right before moving on, because of course our entire company is predicated off of the transaction functionality. So that alone took a lot of time, a lot of patience to kind of flesh through, but I think we definitely got a good handle on it.
Do you think that your app will give small businesses another tool to fight against the big evil empire that is Amazon?
Well, the thing is about Amazon, I actually think we can play nice with Amazon. At least I want to. I'm not interested in going to war against a big 300-pound gorilla in the room.
Right.
But I think what we'll do is, hopefully eventually along the line integrate with Amazon so people can sell their Amazon items, through from Amazon through Boostering to their clients.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think we basically, and we named it Booster because we see ourselves as augmenting shopping behavior, not being the place, but augmenting it and making sure that we're boosting sales for existing platforms.
Like, because I'm thinking my sister opened up a boutique store last year, and she has her own clothing line that she's designed from scratch. And I'm trying to get her to sell online, and of course she's a little scared. And she's like, "Well, people want to see the dresses, and a
Mm.
picture may not be enough." And this is kind of like a nice blend between the two. You could do a live
Yeah.
stream. She could almost have like a little fashion show going on in her store, and people could be sitting at home or on the app, essentially watching it, and then purchase the dress that they like. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, yeah. If people follow her, I mean, they could get a notification anytime she goes live, and if she wants to promote something or roll out a new product or new dress or whatever. Yeah, people will be able to watch the broadcast, but also ask questions about the sizing, ask questions about the pattern, how it was made, what the material is like, what the quality is like, and really make it a very informed decision before actually conducting the purchase. And that also kind of plays into, I think the existing problem with e-commerce is that it's on a static web page. You have a description of the product. You have no idea if it's accurate or not. In fact, you have no idea if the photo that they uploaded was photoshopped and altered in some way. But with live video, with it being unedited, unscripted, unfiltered, it's extraordinarily authentic. So people can go on there, ask questions, and make the purchase like that if they want to. And later on, I mean, there's all kinds of interesting directions we can take this. I think one of the features we'd like to roll out is where the camera can actually scan your body, determine your dimensions, and see if a certain dress or product would be a good size or fit for you, right? So I think that's where we come in, is helping provide the buyer with a more informed decision, along with helping the seller build that relationship between themselves and the customers. So I think we're helping provide a service to both sides of that equation.
So the last question, and maybe the most important one that I probably should have asked sooner, is how do you guys make money? And then how much does everyone pay? Like what are the transaction fees, and how much does the seller pay you guys a month or for a membership or whatever it might be?
Sure. So the app is free to download. It's free to use, free to watch, free to sell, all that kind of stuff. So the only way we make money is through the transaction. So we charge a 5% fee plus credit card processing fees, which is through Stripe about 3.4%. So it's a total of about 8.4% that is being deducted from every transaction, and which fits in pretty nicely with other templates that are out there. I mean, we're not a crowdfunding site, but if you look at Kickstarter or Indiegogo, they're all about that 8.4%. So we found that format is pretty accessible to most people, and they relate to that. We haven't got any pushback about it whatsoever, so we're pretty happy to settle on that number. But yeah, otherwise the app is completely free to use, and we just skim the 5% off, and that's it.
Well, some even take more, right? The marketplaces, the Amazon and Walmart and probably even Etsy. I mean, those are anywhere from probably 10 to 20%.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of hiked up fees out there, and I think if you look at the whole e-commerce platform as a whole, I mean, you have different people competing with each other, trying to lower their fees here or there. But anytime you get like a more of a niche platform, they can of course hike up the fee a little more. So we want to kind of have our fee kind of in a sweet spot of expectations where we're not, going against, someone's sense of business. And the thing is, with us going after sellers, these people are fully aware of how much every dollar and cent counts. So we have to make the fee structure that benefits them, but also, of course, allows us to keep the company running as well.
And this is the last question. Have you guys thought about, or maybe this isn't necessarily on you, but more on the sellers, to partner with potential influencers to bring in a larger audience for a live stream? Like, so for instance, let's just take my sister, for instance, right? So she's created this new fashion line. It's her second season. So she's got all new dresses and fabrics and everything else. She was to partner with an influencer that had a large audience, and that large influencer could, mention it somehow, or, partner up where essentially she's like, she'd probably come to my sister's store and they would do it from there. And, that influencer could bring in a ton more people to watch the live stream. I don't know what the capacity levels are on the live streams. Maybe that's a good question too, but I would think somewhere down the road, partnerships with influencers would be a nice fit, right?
Oh yeah, no, that's a very astute question actually. So we're actually actively speaking with a few of those influencers out there right now, looking YouTube influencers or Instagram influencers who have a sizable following that they can transfer over to Booster. One thing I neglected to mention is that when you do start a broadcast, you have the choice of either broadcasting and collecting money for yourself and selling your own products, or you can actually sell products on behalf of a company if you want to. So we have an affiliate program, and this speaks directly to internet influencers who are sponsored by a lot of different companies out there. So say if I'm an internet influencer and I'm sponsored by a particular shoe company, I could actually start a broadcast on Booster, and then on the going live screen, there's two sections at the bottom: broadcasting for myself or for an organization. Tap on organization, choose the company that sponsored me, start my broadcast. So during the broadcast, when people swipe from left to right to see the inventory, they can actually see the products from that company. So the broadcaster gets a commission based off of all the products that they sell on behalf of that organization. So I think there's a good fit for us in the internet influencer market, and we built that affiliate program specifically with that in mind, hoping that people would use us as a means to help, augment their sponsorship relationships that they have, and as well transfer over their existing followers onto Booster.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate your time. If you want, shoot me an email. I know a couple people that run influencer agencies. I think both in LA actually. So I'd be happy to connect with you. Maybe that'd be a nice conversation to have for both sides.
Absolutely.
So website's boosterapp.tv. That'll go in the show notes. What's the best way to connect with you online? Do you use any social media or email address?
My email address is Michael, Michael, at boosterapp.tv. But of course, if you want to find us on Facebook, you can just message us there. We keep a really good eye on our messaging. So if you want to just search for Booster on Facebook and message us with any questions, or if you have any particular comments or questions, we'd be more than happy to talk to you there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the information. Really appreciate it. Thanks for spending some time with us. Wish you guys the best of luck moving forward. Sounds like you're off to a nice start. And let's stay in touch.
Awesome. Sounds good, Jonah. Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Sorry. Bye.